Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here, and today we're going to be looking at how we're going to take our Chapter 1 model and our uh, reflection question that we answered and use that to not only improve our model, but also create our Chapter 2 model. Last but not least, we're also going to look at how our model is going to be graded now that we've introduced this activity, reviewed it, and are going to continue improving it. So let's get started. At the start of this activity, you guys created a model using our before, during, and after model here, excuse me, and you guys added different pictures, icons, and digital tools to show us why you think our newt population is changing and to show us that cause and effect relationship between our newts and our environment. Now, up to this point, hopefully you've made some changes to your reflection question. And now we're going to ask ourselves, okay, does my Chapter 1 model represent everything I know now that we've learned about Chapter 2? And do I need to make any changes? Now, when we look at our model, we should be asking ourselves a few questions. Number one, do we use many digital tools? Number two, do you show us rather than tell us what you think is going on with the newts? Does your model match your answer to the focus question that we asked? Do we see the impact the environment has on the newts? And do we see how and why the newt population is changing? All of these things are important when we model what's going on with our newt population. So let's take a look at how we use these requirements in our rubric and how you're going to be using these to grade not only your model moving forward, but to hopefully help you create now your Chapter 2 model. So up to this point, you've answered your question for the response. You have your Chapter 1 model, but we're going to leave this one alone. You shouldn't be doing anything to your Chapter 1 model because now you're going to go to your Chapter 2 model, so that should be by slide 8, and you're going to be creating a new model that represents everything we know about the newt population now that we finished Chapter 2. So when I look at your 700 model, I should see Chapter 1 should look different from Chapter 2 to some degree, okay? So the question is, what changes do I need to make, and how do I go about making those changes? Well, that's where our rubric comes in. Your model is going to be graded on two things: how we communicate our changing population and how we model that cause and effect relationship that we see. Okay. Now, your model should include everything within the meets category. So when I look at your model, I should see that you use many digital tools to model your full explanation of how the newts are changing. I should also see that your model accurately shows a cause and effect relationship between the environment and the changing newt population. So if you're looking at these things, you're wondering, well, what does that all mean? Well, we have a breakdown here to explain what we should be seeing in our model. So first off, using many digital tools. I should see when I look at your model, different images, icons, shapes, colors, arrows, and lines. All of these things should be used in some degree within your model. You should be using these digital tools to model your full explanation of how the newts are changing. Do you show us how the newts are changing instead of telling us? Okay, remember, we're modeling, not explaining. And can we see all your ideas from your response in your models? Can we see what you wrote matches your model that you showed us? Next, does our model accurately show a cause and effect relationship between the environment, so what's going on with the environment, and the changing newt population? So how does the environment change over time? How does the changes affect our newts? How does our newt population change over time? And why is this change occurring? So this is what I'm going to be looking for when I grade our model after we've completed our Chapter 2 model. So if we're looking at these questions, you're like, oh, okay, I know I need to fix some things here, or I need to do more showing rather than telling. I need to talk about or show the environment a little bit more, or I need to show why our newts are changing a little bit better. You can obviously go in and begin creating your Chapter 2 model. If you're somebody who's like, I'd like to see an example of how this rubric works, okay, then we're going to use it on someone's model, or at least their Chapter 1 model. So let's take a look. So the first thing I would do is I would come in here and I would read this person's response and see, does it match everything I see in their model for their chapter? Well, in this case, it would be the Chapter 2 model that you create. I'm not going to be grading your Chapter 1 using the rubric. But let's imagine I was. And the first thing I would do is I'd read through this here and I'd identify what you think's happening. And I'd pull out some big ideas. So for example, there are snakes that are eating the newts, and the newts are more likely to survive because their poison level is increasing. Well, if I were to go to this model, first thing I'd ask myself is, do they use some digital tools to show that idea? Well, I see some pictures, good. I see some lines and some arrows, good. I don't really see icons. I don't really see shapes. I don't really see colors being used in here to really show what's going on. I see some sentences here that tell us what's going on, but I don't really see a lot to do with that idea that the snakes are eating certain newts. I see an arrow pointing from the snake to the newts, but I don't know what's going on with this connection. Are they scaring them away? Are they eating them? Are they injecting them with poison? And that's how they're getting more poisonous. What's going on that causes the snakes to change our newts? So right off the bat, I noticed that what they wrote here doesn't match here. Okay. So that would be something that we need to fix. I also noticed that they don't use a bunch of digital tools in here. So that would also be something that they need to fix. Now notice, this is what they did with chapter 1. Their fixes need to happen in chapter 2. So if this person wanted to copy and paste this into chapter 2 and then make the changes there, that'd be great. But what we shouldn't be doing is changing our chapter 1. Don't change your chapter 1. Leave that alone. I should be able to see a difference from your chapter 1 to your chapter 2. So I'd go back in the rubric and I'd probably give this person a beginning requirements. They use a few digital tools and they model parts of their explanation, but not all of it. Okay, so make sure we use our digital tools, many of our digital tools, and we model our full explanation. The second part, do they show a cause and effect relationship between the environment and the newts? Well, let's take a look. I see here that they know there's snakes in the environment, but I don't really see how the snakes are affecting our newts. I also don't see how the environment's changing. Obviously, we know the environment changed from the distant past to the present day, but how did it change? I don't really see that here. Lastly, do we see that cause and effect relationship between the changing newt population? Well, if I look at their model here, I don't really see how the newts are changing. I see where they started and where they ended, but I don't see anything changing. I see something here about newts mate and make more poisonous newts, but that doesn't tell me how we went from low to high in our distribution. So these ideas have the beginnings of our rubric, but don't really give a detailed model of what's going on. So if I were to give this person a grade, I would say the model inaccurately shows the impact the environment has on the newts. I know there's snakes, but I don't know what's going on with that environment and how the newt population is changing. I don't really see that. I know change is happening. I know it might have something to do with mating, but I don't see anything else. So again, this person would probably be here. And that's how I'd go about grading that person's rubric, their model. A really good start, but definitely some improvements that we can make. So folks, at this point, hopefully we're thinking to ourselves, how can I make changes? How can I make improvements? And then instead, remember, we're not changing chapter 1. We're going to go into chapter 2 and we're going to make the changes there. Okay? So once we're done making those changes, we're going to reflect on what we think we did well, what we think we didn't, and then we'll go back and we'll make sure that in our PowerPoint that we move on to the next slide. So if you're somebody who has questions, okay, about how your model is going to be graded, or if you have questions about how to make improvements, come see me. If you have an idea of where to start and what to do, obviously you're ready to move forward. If you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, good luck.